what is freedom to Phillis Wheatley? Where are the ways? There's political freedom. She doesn't have that.
Right.
So what kinds, so now I want to hear what kinds she claims.
So I think for her, the egalitarian rhetoric of the revolution allows her to address freedom and the freedom to choose, right? To choose to form a country out of consent, right? And so I think in many ways these discourses are doubled, right? In that she's speaking, yes, praising the figures in her culture that are fighting for freedom, fighting the revolution, right? And as human beings dying in the process or dying because their time has come, right? As in Reverend George Whitefield. But in praising them through death and as figures who have done something important, right? Particularly Whitefield here, we have him, the stanza in which we hear, in quotations, what he's saying to his congregation, right? And he says, "Take him, ye wretched, for your only good. Take him, ye starving sinners, for your food. And then take him, ye Africans. He longs for you," right? Impartial Savior,
the key, right? The key
passage, right?
Yeah.
In his title, "Do," right? Washed in the fountain of redeeming blood, you shall be sons and kings and priests to God. In another edition of the poem, another version, the line reads, "He'll make you free and kings and priests to God," right? So it's this way of double speak, right? Of speaking to freedom, as in the revolution, speaking about the death of someone who has gone. He leaves
heaven. He's
right.
been emancipated. Right.
He's been emancipated to heaven, right?
I was struck by how she
addresses in his voice Americans and then separately Africans.
Yes.
So it seems like she's not including herself or her other enslaved brethren as Americans. And I wonder kind of how she at once both associates herself with American freedom and the revolution and as this kind of separate freedom as an enslaved person.
Right. I think that just brings up the question of an irony that's really daunting, that she leaves there for you to notice, right? Yeah. Instead of solving that problem herself, because that would have solved the race problem, right? It's to leave it there precisely to make you question that, right? And to make you say, why?
And to say, Christians, Africans, Americans, who's part of what Venn diagram? I'm making distorted arm because I'm trying to make, right? And I think Wheatley uses lists like this, right? Where the items, you think, wait, don't those items belong in the same category? What are the belief systems, the discourses that would put all the items in that list in the same category? Will Christianity do it? Will American independence do it? Will English, will our honorable earls do it? Where's the momentum? Yeah, Odile.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how she puts the pressure on the rhetoric to sort of do that combining for her, that you may be separated into Americans and Africans somewhat problematically beforehand, but doesn't actually matter because through the rhetoric of Christian salvation or of American freedom or whatever rhetoric she's adopting at the moment, you all become one afterwards. So this kind of transmutation that she's constantly putting pressure on these various rhetorics to perform
and
that
them all
kind of
simultaneously sometimes, right? Let's throw them together and see if they'll get us over the mountain. Right. And that's partly why, because there is there's a rhetoric of deliverance, right? That describes her as an immigrant, a slave immigrant, a Christian, a child who comes into, and it's fantastic. I think she's an extraordinary poet for understanding how all of these rhetorics do point in the same direction, how none of them are actually affording persons of her kind what they ought to, and yet I think believing in language enough, right, as others, as her countrymen are, the framers, the writers of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident. we say it, so it's true, right? Thinking, okay, if we say this, if we put this in writing, maybe it will be.
Our discussion reminds me also of a stanza in to the Right Honourable William, Earl of Dartmouth, in which, as Seth said, the opening is "Hail, happy day," when smiling like the morn, right? I'm going to, this is in praise of this figure, and the rhetoric of the first stanza is very much on, praising the American Revolution and this particular figure in the American Revolution, and it goes on very powerfully. In the second stanza begins, "No more America in mournful strain of wrongs and grievance and unredressed complaint. No longer shalt thou dread the iron chain which wanton tyranny with lawless hand had made, and with it meant to enslave the land," right? And then, as if you still don't get it, right? She asks, "Should you, my lord, while you peruse my song, wonder from whence my love of freedom sprung? Whence flow these wishes for the common good? By feeling hearts alone best understood. I, young in life, by seeming cruel fate, was snatched from Afric's fancied happy seat. What pangs excruciating must molest, what sorrows labor in my parents' breast? Still was that soul, and by no misery moved, that from a father ceased his babe beloved. Such was my case, and can I then, by pray, others may never feel tyrannic sway?" Right, so really eloquent,
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I love when you said, well, in case we don't get it, in case we don't get that Americans are using a language of slavery against their British oppressors, and it's becoming it's a real fad to call the king, he's got his foot on our neck, we're the yoke of slavery because we have to, pay for our stationery, and our tea, we're overtaxed for our tea. Certainly Thomas Paine is using that language. And so yes, she's offering us that language so that we feel the irony. It's actually, I think, quite interesting the way she then offers her own case.
Right.
That's not exactly an illustration of that. It's an illustration of, she's saying, I'm a special expert, I really understand.
I'm appreciating the irony that we can find there as 21st century readers, that I wonder if it's possible to recover how it would be read by people in her time, because someone reading it at the time would have taken it immediately, I think, as an example proving her case.